Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Stop Wasting Your Money, How to Grow Your MSP Business with Appointment Setting. I'm Amber Noble, a marketing specialist at Barracuda MSP, and I'm happy to be moderating today's session. Today, I'm joined by Brad Stoller, National Director of Business Development at the PT Services Group. During today's educational webinar, Brad will share need-to-know tips about working with appointment setting companies to make sure you have success. Before we get started, let's do some brief housekeeping. During the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to share them using the questions or chat panels to the right of the Zoom webinar screen. At the conclusion of the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete a brief polling survey. Please take a moment to tell us what you think so we can continually improve the content and quality of our online events. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Brad to begin today's presentation. Take it away, Brad.
Well, thanks, Amber. I'm really excited today. First of all, as always, a big thank you to Barracuda for the invitation and the opportunity to speak with MSP owners and managers all over the country. I've had the fortune to travel quite a bit, and I got to meet with quite a few owners, and I've heard their pains, I've heard their successes, and but I just wanted to say thanks. For those of you that I've met, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to kind of help me get a better pulse of what's going on out there in the MSP world, and it's been a real privilege and honor. But we've got a lot to go over with today. So again, I'm excited for the opportunity to help. But before we dive in too deep, I'd like you to meet an MSP owner, John. John's always had a passion for computers and networking, and he started helping some business people from his church with their computers. And before too long, he quit his job at McDonald's and he opened his computer consulting business 10 years ago. Back then, businesses called him and he had more than he could handle. He was making a lot of good money. Life was really good for John back then. And then, some complications started happening. But about 5 years later, he was inundated with projects and what we refer to today as break-fix clients who only really wanted him when they needed him. But he had to hire some staff to take care of all these business fluctuations that he never really knew if they were going to be busy or not. It just kind of gone at a whim. And it seemed like his staff was always working hard, and then they ended up, getting burnt out, and he did too. So it kind of led him to be a little bit on the anxious side. So in year 8, John realized that he actually lost money for the first time. So John's business, it appeared to be booming from the outside, but he really struggled to make any net profits. He helped everyone a salesperson brought in, and on the surface, it really looked like his sales were growing fast. But he wasn't having any fun any longer. He just couldn't sleep at night, he was worrying all the time. And, it got to the point where he just started to think about selling his business, and he was just plain frustrated. And then something happened. So enter John's friend, Bill. That's Bill. So Bill suggested that John start by being choosy on the appointments that his salespeople would go on. And he had to stop working with just anybody that they called in. And Bill suggested, that John set up what he called a customer profile. And then he began working with those prospects that seemed to meet and match with that customer profile. And Bill also recommended that his inside salesperson ask qualifying questions before an appointment was made. So after thinking about this, John became a little bit hopeful. So today, John now has a customer profile, and he targets customers that fit his profile. His sales team makes sure that the prospects are a good potential fit before they spend time meeting with them. John's stress level has gone way down. His team is happier, and he's making money again. Lots of it. And of course, a lot of it's because he's selling Barracuda's new email security. I had to do that for Barracuda. But anyways, John is now passionate again about his business. So anyways, that story about John, okay, John really isn't an MSP owner. I made the whole thing up. Okay, but the point is, John could be any of you today. So let's start talking a little bit on how we can stop wasting your money, or you can stop wasting your money, and how to grow your MSP business with appointment setting, whether or not you do it internally or if you hire a firm like us. Doesn't matter. The principles are still there. So here's what we're going to be covering today. One, we're going to cover how to qualify your prospects and why that's important. We're going to determine how you should determine quality for appointments, the right mindset and realistic expectations that you really should have. This is violated quite a bit, by the way, so we need to talk about that a little bit. How colder in nature appointments differ from warm referrals, and what that first appointment should really look like. And also, we'll sum it up with ways to find pain in your appointments so that your appointments that you pay for, one way or another, actually pay off. So let's start out. And I also want to make sure that everybody understands, if you have a question or don't understand something, want some clarification, it's okay to put something in that chat window, and Amber will let me know if we have some questions. It's okay. We'd rather have it be interactive than I do all the talking. So with that in mind, how to qualify your prospects. Well, first of all, it starts with your company. You got to ask yourself some questions like, what are you really good at? And also, what are some things that maybe you're not so good at? You need to be candid with yourself. And what are your capabilities? Are you capable of, doing 50 people, in a company? Are you capable of doing 500, 1,000? Maybe you're only capable of 15. Whatever that is. What are your capabilities? And be honest with yourself. And then, before we go too farther in the process, we also want to make sure that we factor in, hey, what about your best customers? If you want to find more, the ones you enjoy working with the most, well, first of all, you got to identify who are the ones that are your best customers and you enjoy working with. What industries are they in? How many employees do they have? And what are their issues that you are currently solving for them? And once you get a picture of who it is that you would like to meet with, then we need to get to the point where we have what we call qualifying questions. And I put down some examples of these that can be asked. And these qualifying questions should be asked by whoever's making those calls to set those appointments. So if you have somebody at your company that's doing that, they need to be asking these types of questions. And if you don't give them the direction, you're probably going to end up wasting a lot of time and money. If you have an outsourced company do it, it is imperative that they ask these questions. And if they don't ask those questions, you shouldn't be doing business with them. That's how strongly you feel about it. So it's just some examples. How many employees or end users? How many locations do you have? How many servers? How many mobile employees do you have? Do you have currently an IT department? How many are in that department? Will you be hiring more employees in the near future? And these are just some questions, but I always like to make sure that we ask it kind of at the tail end. Mr. Prospect, is there anything on your mind concerning security, network, your network, ransomware, email security? Is there anything else on your mind? And just make sure that they listen, because the prospect will tell you what's on their mind, and you'll need to know that information before you go to that appointment if you want to be successful with it. So again, inside reps or outsourced appointment setting companies, it really doesn't matter. If they don't ask the qualifying questions, I don't make many guarantees, but I will guarantee you are wasting time. A lot of people I talk with, they mention that, we get, 10 appointments a month. And actually I think we've had 3 good ones out of those 10. That's not acceptable. That has to be a lot better than that. I'd rather have, instead of 10 appointments, I'd rather have 4 or 5 with 3 good ones. Ideally, I'd like to have 3 appointments and they're all good. But if you have 10 and you only have 3, that means you're wasting 7 appointments. You start doing the math, you can see where it ultimately comes down to is how much is your time worth? And a way to kind of monitor this is, we have to have some form of feedback. Bill Gates, I think most of you have probably heard of who Bill Gates is. Okay, he's been a little bit successful, but he's quoted as, we all need people who will we all need people who will give us feedback, and that's how we improve. So whether you do it internally, externally, it is very, very important you have a system to collect that feedback. That system really doesn't have to be all that elaborate. It just really, you need to have feedback as a tool and to determine that quality. And there's something else you can tell if you pay attention to this feedback, and actually, it's just common sense. Well, let's say the feedback comes back that your appointments, actually, you're grading appointments, they're great. No problem with the appointments at all, and you're making sales. Well, that's pretty good feedback. I mean, yeah, you're on the road to success. I mean, that's what you want. The next level is the appointments are really good quality, but gosh, we just haven't made any sales. I caution you, remember that, sales cycles can sometimes take some time, but you'll know if you have that feeling of, I have some real warm prospects, I really feel good about it. May not happen right away, but I know it's coming. 6, 7, 8 months later, they start popping, okay? So you got to give it a little time. There's also the level of, you're making sales, but you feel the appointments that you're getting really aren't very good quality. Well, that's another problem. Hey, the good part is you're pretty good at sales. That's excellent. We can do a lot with that. But with poor quality appointments, it still means you're getting 10 appointments and only 3 of them are any good. You're wasting a lot of time. And then the last scenario is you have really poor quality appointments and you're not making any sales. And if that's the case, we have some major problems and we need a lot of coaching. We need a lot of everything. So, but you have to kind of figure out, what level you're currently at. If you've never thought of it that way, I would encourage you to do that right now. And the question comes up a lot of times, who is the one who actually determines the quality? And if it's not you, I don't know whether in any other scenario where it shouldn't be you. I have heard some stories from people I've talked with. I won't mention any names of companies that they've worked with, but I do know one that really sticks out like a sore thumb. And if you hear this, please run, hang up and run. But I've heard a story of a company that actually charges per qualified appointment. And the problem with this is it sounds good. If it's a qualified appointment, why not pay for it, right? But the problem is they're the ones who determine if it's qualified or not. So you go out on an appointment, as long as you meet with them, they say that's qualified. Well, that's not qualified at all. All that means is you wasted your time if it's not a good match for you. So if you're going to talk to a company about outsourcing, make sure that you ask them, hey, do you have a system? Describe to me your system of how you determine whether an appointment is qualified or not. And then if it's anything to do with anything but you determining that, that's a thank you, but no thank you. So I give an example. Here's what we do at the PT Services Group. This is one of our actual MSP clients. This is a screenshot from the feedback that he is giving to us, which of course he has the feedback because he's the one who filled it out. But there's the appointments we set for last July of this year. The far right, where under the column it says outcome, you'll see an HQ, Q, HQ, Q, Q, HQ. Okay. Here's the system does not have to be very, it doesn't have to be that elaborate. Our system is just simply, was the appointment, do you feel it just didn't hit the mark, so it would be a not qualified? Do you feel that it hit the mark, which is qualified, which is a Q? Or do you feel it's highly qualified? You're pretty excited about it. This is a bullseye, 100% home run, and that's an HQ. So this is our system, not only for you, but internally we use this system so we know how we're doing, for our clients. So if this gentleman had a bunch of not qualifieds up there, then we know that we need to make some changes, or maybe there's expectations on his part, whatever it may be, but something has to change, and that's important that you get that feedback. So next, what I'd like to talk about, I don't know, Amber, do we have any questions so far?
Nope, no questions so far.
Okay, I'm either doing a really good job or I'm putting everybody to sleep. I'm not sure which, but so feel free to chime in anytime, please. But let's talk a little bit about the right mindset and expectations, and we need to be candid about this, because a lot of people I talk with, there's a lot of confusion out there as to what their expectations really should be. But here's what we found. MSP clients, especially your preferred clients, they often have a very long sales cycle. What I mean by that is those ones that have the monthly recurring revenue, and you're after their entire operations. That could take a while. And if you think that it won't, then you need to kind of figure out that maybe that's not very realistic. We see it all the time. It does take a long time to get an entire department to come, or entire company to give everything they have to you. So you have to be aware of that. Quick business can be generated, but it's normally project oriented. Maybe not a total replacement of the existing MSP that's there, or the entire company operations, at least not yet. But you need to understand this reality and be mentally prepared for that, because if you're not, you're going to be frustrated and you're going to be disappointed. So here's some things that we've been kind of figuring out, talking to owners and seeing the successful ones that we work with and the ones that seem to struggle. And that, you can always do project work for a good prospect. As long as they meet that, your client profile, you can always do some project work, at least just to get in the door with them. You have to understand that they're going to be checking you out to see if you're any good. And you're going to be no different than if you were to try somebody, whether it's you're buying something off the street, or whether you're doing something for your business. It's always better to take maybe a little trial, I guess, if you will, to see how it works. And if it works great, we're all in that mode. Hey, if it works great, then okay, fine, let's double what we started out with, as long as you're getting a return. Your prospects are no different. They want to test you out too. So another way you can think of this is, if you have opted to take maybe some project work to get in the door with that ideal prospect, well, hey, they're going to pay you for it. So you can think of this as funding your marketing while they're going through that longer sales cycle. And eventually, when the time's right and they give you all that business, well, you're not really out of anything cash flow wise. You're kind of self-funding your marketing program. So it's not a bad way to go. It's your choice. You can make that introduction, or what we call that first time appointment. You can stay in touch with them over the next few months. A few of those are going to become new clients, a few months from now. That's what a lot of MSPs prefer. They don't want the break fix and project work. I get it. But the other choice you can take on a small project now with a good fitting prospect, earn their trust during the months that you would normally be giving them a drip email or a phone call every couple of months, and then earn all of their business down the road. And if you do a good job for them, you'll probably get a higher percentage of them that come aboard with their complete programs. But it might take a year down the road before they do that. That's reality. So in the colder nature versus warm referral appointments, there is a difference. And I think it can really be summed up as the circle of trust. And there's you, and you're not in that circle. That's just the way it works. You have to do something to get inside their circle before they will give you that business. And again, until a prospect trusts you, they're certainly not going to buy from you. So how are some ways that you can start that process of getting them to trust you and like you? Well, most business owners really love to talk about their business. So when you show up rather than whipping out your brochures and telling them everything there is about how you guys do business and how you're going to save the world, they really don't care. They really don't. But you might start out something like this. So, John, I'm curious. Of all the things you could have done, how did you end up owning your own business? And that type of a question is really designed to get them to talk about themselves. I don't know that I've ever asked a question something like that where they haven't given me about a good 5-minute answer. And what that does is, really something magical happens when you start showing interest in their business. The more interest you show in their business and you don't talk so much about yours, the more they start liking you and trusting you. It's a little bit at a time. So again, in the colder nature versus warm referrals, that first appointment, when you go out on that, it's all about a fit or not. And if any of you have talked with me in the past, this probably is going to sound kind of familiar because I do it with everybody. And I'm very sincere about that, and I think you should be too. But another way to build trust is to put their minds at ease. So, for example, I will start out with, John, today is all about really just to see if we're a good fit, if we can be compatible or not, or whether we should do business, in the future or not. But at the end of our time today, if you don't feel that we're a good fit for you, I would just prefer that you just tell me no right away. And it's okay to tell me no. I'm fine with that, and mean it. You really want to be very sincere, and there's a reason you want to be sincere about it, because if they're not a good fit, or if you don't think they're a good fit for you, then you have the right to tell them that maybe we're not a good fit today, and that's okay. Okay, but on the other hand, if you feel that we are a good fit, then it's a yes. And then you need to make sure and tell them right up front before you go any farther in the meeting that what the next step is if you guys feel that you guys can work together. And that next step might just simply be, we'd like to send out one of our sales engineers and look at your systems and do a little what we refer to as an IT audit, and just see, if you have any weaknesses where some potential security breaches could happen, and that would be our next step. Are you okay with that? And they're either going to say, well, sure, that's fine. What you don't want is you don't want them to say maybe, or let me think about it at the end of your meeting. It's not allowed, and the reason it's not allowed is they give you a maybe or, well, let me think about it to get that next step, which would be that audit. What they're really, most of the time, they're being very polite. They don't want to, be rude, but they're going to waste your time. So it's either a yes, we can do it, or no, we can't, or if you need to wait 6 months and then do it, that's fine. But you need to have some type of plan. It either has to be a yes or a no. So I hope that makes sense to you. The something else that we've come across with a lot of customers that we work with is they struggle a little bit on taking action or asking for the action for a second appointment. They'll get there and they'll tell all about the company, everything, and what they've done to help others. And then when they're done, they're really not sure how to handle it. So as long as you feel that it's a yes, or as long as they say, yeah, I think we could work together, then here's a simple way to just move the progress, or move the process going forward is, John, what would you like to do? And then John will probably answer, say, well, you said something about an IT audit, so I guess that's our next step then. That's basically a closing question. It's not threatening. You don't have to feel like you're being salesy. It's just a natural progression. And what would you like to do? And it works like a charm. So one of the things that we do as a company is, while we're making sure that you guys have plenty of appointments, is we do our very best to help our clients so they understand, what does it take to get through and build that trust? What do we have to do to increase our sales closing ratios? So we actually partnered up with a coaching company called Sandler Training. I don't know if you've heard of Sandler Training or not before, but they're one of the most popular. I think they're the largest sales coaching organization in the world, actually. So we've developed a relationship with a local franchisee, and we're based in Pittsburgh, where Dan will work on with our clients one-on-one, and he goes through many of the things that we just talked about, but in greater detail, to help you get through that first-time appointment. So you don't show up. The worst thing to do is to show up and you just start rattle on, hey, I need to see your equipment. I need to see this. I need to see that. They're going to do everything they can to kick you out of there so fast. So it's very, very important that you understand there's a difference between that colder nature, those warm referral appointments. You've got some trust build up in there, so it's not quite as urgent that you be a little bit more sales oriented. But let's talk a little bit about finding pain. We're talking about your first time appointments. And while we do need to build trust, we get it, and that is important. You cannot move on to the next step until you feel that you have it. And if you never get it, you might as well leave because nothing's going to happen anyhow. But let's just summarize a little bit on how to find pain in that first meeting. And there's really 3 ways to do it, or 3 areas, I guess. But first of all, you need to figure out, is there a problem there? Secondly is what's causing it. And the third thing is, what's the impact of that problem? And usually what we try and do is, what's the financial impact? What's it costing your company to not have, or what would the cost be to have a data breach, for example? Okay, so those are the 3 main things, but I didn't say how we're going to do it yet. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on just on these 3 things. It's very, very detailed, but I'll do my best to sum it up. So let's just say that first meeting, after you feel that trust has been established, you could say something like this: John, I'm curious. You took this meeting. I'm just kind of wondering, why you want to talk to me and why now? And if you're taking notes, this is a really good thing to jot down, because if you're the one running the appointments, or if you have somebody else running it for you, this is a great, great question. You word it how you need to word it, just as long as you have something close to this. But what it's doing is it's putting, in this case, John, you're basically asking him to tell you what's on his mind. And he's going to tell you exactly where you need to go in order to win him as a customer. That's a pretty powerful question. So here's the thing, though. When John gives you an answer, it's not always going to be, it might be a very top part of his problem that he's really having. So there's actually a little bit of a pattern that we can follow in order for us to get to John's real issue at his company. So let's say when you ask that question, John responds and says, well, I'm a little concerned about the workers I have who are working mobile from home and they're on the road. Question you can follow up with that is, hey, John, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Okay, so John will say something about like, 10 years ago, everybody worked in the office and it wasn't that big of a deal, but hey, now we have 10% of our employees now work remotely, and we're a little concerned, that something could happen with that equipment being out there. So followed up with that, John, can you give me an example? He said, yeah, actually, I can. Ann from our marketing department took a trip just a couple of weeks back. She has a laptop, a mobile phone, and you know what? Her laptop was stolen out of her hotel. And we're really concerned that somebody's in the wrong hands since she was at a convention, that one of our competitors might have been the ones who stole that laptop, but we don't know for sure. Okay, so then follow up again. So John, have you done anything to fix or alleviate it so it doesn't happen again? And John will come up and say, well, there's really no way for us to necessarily fix this. Somebody breaks and they break in, but what we have done is we instituted where if your laptop is stolen while you're on the road, that you're going to have to be responsible for paying for it. We thought by doing that they'd take a few more steps to make sure it's more secure. Okay. The next question, did it work? Or why didn't it work? And then John's going to say something like, well, yeah, we tried that. The problem is we were really making our employees kind of angry about that. It didn't go over real well with them. And we realized that if somebody's going to break into the hotel, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's just it. And the last question you'd ask, John, have you thought about how much this could end up costing your company? And that's when John takes a couple minutes to think about this, and because I haven't really thought about it, but if our main competitor got some of the secrets that we have on that laptop, and they took our sales plan, let's say for the next year, and they stole our ideas and used our things for our products, that could really cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I guess I hadn't really thought too much about it. So what's happened is you've walked them through this process, and the goal is to get them to ask you for your help to fix that problem that you just uncovered. So John might just say, well, Brad, I don't know if there's any way you can do something to help me to fix this, but that's kind of why I really took this appointment. So can you help me with that? That's what you want. You didn't have to sell them anything. You didn't have to be salesy, but just by asking the right questions, you've got their attention, and they want to become a customer of yours. They're begging for your help. That's the whole idea. So in wrapping it up here today, I know we wanted to keep today kind of brief and understand that everything we've gone over, we've covered a lot of territory here today, really trying to keep this to about 30 minutes. And it's difficult because there's just so much, and you can go deep into any of this. But just wrapping it up, there is more to it than simply putting appointments on your calendar. You really need to have a system that determines your quality and the feedback so you can make adjustments, whether you're doing this in-house or whether you hire a company such as us to set those appointments for you. You really need to have the right mindset and expectations, because if they're off, you're going to be disappointed, frustrated, and you're going to feel that it's not working when actuality it really is. And you do need to understand that there really is a difference between a warm referral and a colder in nature appointment. And you also want to make sure that if you're working with a partner, we like to be thought of as a partner, not a vendor that just simply fulfills some appointments for you. We like to be a partner. We want to make sure we do everything we can to help you succeed. And if you're looking for somebody to help you, whether it's us or somebody else, I guess if it were me, I would want to make sure I'd have that type of relationship where I know that they're going to do everything in their power to help me succeed. So this is why we're talking about the different types of sales scenarios and everything here today. But also wrapping it up, if you cannot find any pain in your meetings, your prospects really just are not going to have any motivation whatsoever to make any type of a change, which means they're not coming aboard with you. So if you would like some more info on appointment setting, at least from our point, I welcome you. You can certainly reach out to me. We can have a conversation. You'll hear me say many of the things that I just said today, like, if it's okay to say no if you don't feel there's a fit. I'll say that every time. But anyways, I think it's if you want to have success, you've got to be with a not a vendor, but you really need to be with a partner. And again, if you want to do this all internally, that's fine too. And I hope some of this in the webinar today will help you understand, that customer profiles and qualifying questions, and that'll help your inside salesperson be more successful. And it'll help your outside salesperson, whether that's you or somebody else. It will also help them close a lot more business as well. Excuse me. So anyways, something else, you know, if you do want to talk and you have some interest, we do have some year-end programs. So right now actually is a very good time to chat with us. So other than that, I just wanted to say thank you, Amber, for the invitation, and I'm excited that I had a chance to chat with everybody.